Traitor Primarchs, once noble and revered leaders of the Emperor's Great Crusade, they succumbed to the seductive whispers of the Chaos Gods, became twisted reflections of their former selves. They were the sons of the Emperor, they were the demigods, and now most of them are either demon princes or dead. So they brought ruination and chaos to the galaxy, forever staining the legacy of the Primarchs and plunging the Imperium of Man into an unending war for survival. Led by Horus Luprecal as the warmaster, they began the largest civil war that was known as the Horus Heresy. As you would expect, the Loyalist Primarchs were not going to stand idle and watch their brothers slay everything they hold dear. Therefore, from that point on, there were numerous battles between the two factions. And here are all the times the Traitor Primarchs won duels against their brothers. Number 1. Angron forces Gilman to flee. So after the traitors' attacks on the realm of Ultramar, Gilman's Retribution fleet, which had been tracking the rest of the Wordbearers Legion in the wake of the Battle of Kalt, finally caught up to them on Angron's homeworld of Nuceria. Gilman actually had a fight first with Lorgar and seemed to have the upper hand until Angron stepped in and Lorgar stepped aside for the other two to battle. As the two Primarchs fought, Gilman landed a glancing blow, his fist pounding across Angron's breastplate. One of the skulls of Angron's fallen kinsman had hung from the chain worn on his breastplate and was partially shattered and scattered across the ground. Gilman stepped back, his boot crushing a skull's remnants to powder. Angron saw it and threw himself at his brother, his howl of wrath defying mortal origins, impossibly ripe in his anguish. It was at this time that Angron transcended into a demon prince of Khorne. The gravely wounded Gilman escaped from Nuceria, unable to face or even fully comprehend what both of his brothers had become on that day. Number 2. Horus killed Sanguineus in the final battle of the Horus Heresy. So Sanguineus was a supremely skilled warrior and a leader. He possessed incredible martial prowess and was a master swordsman capable of wielding his signature weapon, the blade and carmine. Sanguineus was considered as one of the greatest fighters among all the Primarchs. He was able to kick Conrad Curse's ass, who was in his power armor, while he himself was only in his bathrobe. Even Horus feared and admitted that Sanguineus would defeat him in a fair duel. But at the end of the Horus Heresy, the Blood Angel was sadly killed by Horus. It is not described in detail as to how the fight went, but Horus at this time was empowered by all 4 of the Chaos Gods, and coupled with his Artificer Terminator armor, he was godlike in power. Nevertheless, Sanguineus was found dead in Horus's feet by the Emperor. It may be because that he was already exhausted after battling a demon prince Angron, and then a bloodthirster right before his duel with the Chaos overpowered Horus, or that the Red Thirst overtook him and drove him mad. In any case, he was dead and Horus was alive in the end. Number 3. Mortarion almost nearly obliterates Gilman with the Godblight. So Mortarion, accompanied by the Typhus and his Plague fleet, led a large invasion force bolstered by mutants and cultists from the Scourged Stars. They were joined by Kugath, the Great Unclean One, and 7 greater demons of Nurgle. They conducted raiding attacks on less defended planets, retreating before the Astartes could be deployed. Gilman eventually returned to Ultramar from his Indomitus Crusade, bringing with him thousands of Primaris reinforcements. Thus, the battle saw the biggest armored clash between the Traitor and the Loyalist forces during the war. The final battle of the war took place here, with Gilman and Mortarion fighting each other to a standstill amongst the ruins of the plagued planet of Lax. The fight was evenly matched until Mortarion injected Gilman with the Godblight, a disease that could not only kill a Primarch, but erase its very essence from the warp as well. It would have been a second death to Rubuti, but fortunately, the Emperor himself intervened, possessed Gilman, and rid his body of the blight, saving the 13th Primarch. Number 4. Conrad Curse defeats the Lion in their first battle. The Night Haunter, as many of you know, like Sanguineus, can see fragments of the future and possible iterations of what's to come, like a form of precognition. One version of the story between him and the Lion battling suggests that Conrad Curse used his stealth and cunning to set traps for Lion L. Johnson. He lured the Lion into a dark and twisted environment that played to Curse's strengths as a master of terror and intimidation. In this battle, Curse employed psychological warfare, using fear and uncertainty to gain an advantage over his opponent. With his enhanced senses and brutal combat skills, he was able to strike at the Lion from the shadows, exploiting his weaknesses and ultimately overpowering him. But that was the only time he will ever do so. 2 more battles between him and the Lion took place, with the Lion winning each one of them, even with Curse's precognitive ability. Number 5. Fulgrim incapacitates Gilman for 10,000 years. This was a post-heresy fight that was presented as a flashback at the start of the Dark Imperium. Gilman assembled a fleet comprising of the Ultramarines chapter, 6 of its successor chapters, to hunt down his traitorous brother Fulgrim. Gilman relentlessly pursued him to Thessala, preparing to end his brother's life. Gilman led a teleportation attack with 100 Ultramarines and their successor chapters against Fulgrim's flagship, the Pride of the Emperor. Gilman and his forces reached the entrance of the Heliopolis, where Fulgrim awaited. Gilman instructed his forces to stay outside, where he confronted Fulgrim alone. His plan was to distract Fulgrim long enough for the successor chapters to weaken the pride of the Emperor. Then, Gilman entered the Heliopolis alone, where Fulgrim attempted to sway him to chaos worship. He refused, and they fought, but Gilman soon realized that he was overmatched. Desperate, he called for Andros and Thiel to join him, the captains of the 1st and the 2nd companies of the Ultramarines. But Fulgrim summoned the Emperor's children reinforcements. Amidst the chaos, the Primarchs clashed once more, and Fulgrim emerged victorious, fatally wounding Gilman with a poisoned sword through his neck. Gilman was shocked and asked how Fulgrim could strike him so severely, to which Fulgrim revealed that his warp-infused eyes detected the scar from Corferon's athema inflicted on Gilman during the Battle of Calth, hence landing the final and decisive blow. Number 6. Fulgrim kills Ferris Manus. So Fulgrim had won over Ferris Manus before, and here during the Battle of Isvan V, Fulgrim offered Ferris Manus a chance at survival by wielding each other's weapons. Ferris rejected the offer, vowing not only to surrender, but to fight him to the end. The two Primarchs engaged in a fierce duel, their mighty weapons clashing with devastating power. However, Fulgrim's warp-enhanced strength proved superior, and Ferris found himself overpowered. In the final attempt, Ferris struck at Fulgrim's groin. Ooh! But Fulgrim deflected the blow with his penis and countered with a strike to Ferris' skull, not with his penis. Despite the wound, Ferris fought back, and their battle brought them to their knees. Fulgrim felt a moment of sadness and whispered to his brother, but Ferris rejected his words and prepared to deliver a fatal blow. However, Fulgrim drew a sword that he had taken from the Lair Temple and blocked Ferris' attack. The sword's power surged, and Fulgrim resisted Ferris' strength, eventually pushing him back. With a cry of rage, Fulgrim wounded Ferris, and a diabolical presence surrounded him. Fulgrim hesitated, realizing that the monstrous betrayal that he had been a part of was killing him from inside, but found himself unable to release the sword. He swung the blade uncontrollably, severing Ferris' head, killing him. Overwhelmed by the consequences of his actions, Fulgrim fell to the ground, witnessing the massacre around him and grieving for his fallen brother. So those are every time the Traitor Primarchs defeated the Loyalist Primarchs. Well, conclusively. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed watching this video. Do hit that like button for support and subscribe, but most of all, smash that bell icon for regular updates on new videos here on this channel. Take care, boys.